I can't quite believe that I'm saying this out loud, but this episode marks over 9 years of running my own business. It's crazy to hear myself say that out loud, partly because the numbers are getting bigger every year, as they do with a birthday and a celebration. I felt the same way a few months back when we had the podcast's 7th birthday. That felt crazy to say. I can't believe it's going to be 10 years in business next year. In fact, I don't really want to think about that. That overwhelms me a bit. But 9 years in business feels wild, not just for that number of years, but also because I know that for so many of those years, it hasn't felt like I'm running this big, successful, proper business. For so many years of those 9 years, especially towards the start, it felt messy and small and sticky and unsure and just like, I don't know, not like a business, I guess, for some of it. So although it feels a little bit weird to say I've been running a business for 9 years, I guess more what I mean is like I have been on my journey as a business owner for 9 years now. And the only way that I kind of know when I'm reaching another year within my business is because I started my business, I think it was about a month or two before my 18th birthday. So if you're not familiar with my kind of origin story, I quit school when I was 16. So I was halfway through my A-levels. I was offered a full-time job in an events role within a garden centre. It was not a logical thing for me to quit school for that job. I will say that myself. But at the time, I was just so excited to get out into the world of work. I wanted more. I wanted to get stuck into things. So I left school kind of in search of that. A year into that role, I then got offered a freelance job in what I thought was events management, but actually turned out to be social media management. So that begun my journey really of being a business owner. I didn't know what being self-employed or a sole trader meant, but my attitude back then was just say yes to everything and see what happens. And hey, 9 years on, something good I would say has happened from that. But yeah, that's kind of how I know that the business is reaching another year, because I don't quite have a specific date in mind of like, that's when I started my business. It felt very accidental in the early days. I definitely didn't have a moment where I was like, cheers, this is the day I start my business. It was more like, oh, I'm freelance. Oh, I'm self-employed. Oh, I'm a sole trader. What does all this mean? Oh, 6 months later, maybe I'm running a business. Okay. So I kind of just lump it in with my own birthday, which is actually on the 1st of April when you are listening to or watching this episode. If you're tuning in the day that this comes out, this is coming out on Tuesday, the 1st of April, which is my 27th birthday. Now also my business's 9th birthday. In fact, we're 9 and a few unknown months because I don't know when my business birthday actually is. But I thought because it's kind of that multi-milestone that I would use this episode to really reflect more on that journey of the last 9 years and share with you some of the key kind of lessons, I guess, that I feel like I've really picked up along the way. So what I'm going to share in this episode is 9 lessons from 9 years in business. And these are all lessons that I feel have really become non-negotiables in the way that I run my business. They're things that I've learned from other people. There's things that I've learned here from making mistakes and kind of learning things the hard way. But all of them I can see over these last 9 years have really helped to shape the way that my business has grown. And I really closely hold all of these lessons to me as I take action moving forwards. And I know that these lessons are ones that haven't just helped my business grow in the past, but are really going to help my business continue to grow in the future. So whether you're just listening to this because you're a little bit nosy and you want to learn more, or whether you're hoping to maybe take something away into your own business, I'm really hoping that one, at least, if not many of these lessons are going to resonate with you and might be things that you can also take with you in your own business journey. It's also worth me saying before I dive into these lessons that because it's my birthday, there is also something very exciting happening, which only happens one time in the year when my birthday is, which is a shop-wide sale on both my strategy shop and also my stationery shop. If you're not familiar, I've got 2 online shops. One is my physical stationery store on paper, where you can get productivity stationery and all the fun stuff to help you organize your time and set goals within your business. We sell desk pads, wall planners, lots of fun stuff, and also lots of fun stuff on the way that's currently being developed. And I also have what's called the strategy shop, which is my online store full of digital products and tools and courses that are proven to really help make your business not just grow, but also improve your experience as a business owner of working on your business. Every single year on my birthday, I do a discount across the 2, and every year that discount gets 1% better because I just do a discount of whatever my age is. So this year, for 1 week only, you can get 27% off of both of my shops. So if you have been thinking about maybe grabbing a tool that is going to help you manage your finances, finances, you can go grab the finance files. Or if you've been thinking about investing in some stationery to really help you or your team, or maybe you've been eyeing up my podcast course to help you start your own show, whatever resource it might be that I can help you with, now is the time to buy it, because you can get 27% off. And it is my promise to you that the next time there will be a discount that big is in a year's time, 365 days, when it's going to be a 28% off sale. So don't worry, it's not like the DFS sale where there's a sale every 20 minutes. This is a special thing that really just happens one time a year. So I'll leave the links in the show notes for both of those shops so you can have a browse and save yourself some money as you invest in a tool that's going to help your business grow. And without further ado, I'm going to dive into these 9 lessons that I've picked up in 9 years of running a business. Starting off with a lesson that I think will not shock anyone, because it is something that I've kind of become known for without really meaning to, but now I'm like, absolutely, I will be the pioneer of this thing, which is the lesson that messy action is the only secret to growth. If I were to get another tattoo that is business themed, if you're not familiar, I already have a businessy tattoo on my arm here, which I'm actually going to talk about as a later lesson. It would definitely be something around messy action. It's a phrase that I've used for years, and it's one that I notice really resonates with people, because I think as business owners, we can have this real tendency to expect there to be some other secret that isn't just the cold hard truth of messy action. Now, when I say messy action, I don't mean sloppy action or giving things, a half-hearted approach. I mean taking action before you feel 100% ready. So many business owners, myself included, right? We have a tendency to wait to feel ready, or to think that there's going to be this perfect time. But the reality is that doesn't exist. And the best way to learn, and therefore the best way to grow, is to take action. So for me, this mantra of messy action being the only secret to growth is something that I think has been fundamental for my business over the last 9 years. I see from day one of my business, messy action playing a role. When I first started my business and I said yes to opportunities that I didn't feel very qualified for, when I was in rooms that I felt like the least experienced person in, when I first started showing up online but had no clue, when I began hosting this podcast and genuinely recorded some of the most cringy sounding episodes you've ever heard. Every single part of my business journey has been underpinned by the messy action that I've taken. And of course, at the time, that messy action has often felt quite uncomfortable and new and, not ideal. I would have rather taken action that felt really confident and established and effective. But I knew deep down that I was only going to get to that point through the messy action first. And I've seen in every part of my business, this podcast, the events that I've hosted, the network that I've built, the way that I work with my clients one-to-one, everything had to begin with messy action. And it was messy action that helped me to grow quick, improve the plan, and then get better moving forwards. So I think that has been a lesson for me that I learned from day one in my business. I didn't have the language for it at the time. I used to call myself naively optimistic. I was like, I just believe that maybe things will work out. And I think that really helped me to get messy, because I kind of didn't really care. I was just like, let's just have a go. Let's just see what happens. It's amazing to me that looking back and going, wow, look at all the things that messy action has kind of unlocked and created for me. So that's my first lesson that I want to share. And I've kind of thought about these lessons as maybe a little bit of a chronological order, mainly just being that I think is the one that I can see from day one. The second lesson I feel like I've really learned and want to hold close for myself over the last 9 years of business is that you are in control of what grows within your business based on what you choose to share and therefore be known for. When I look back over the last 9 years of my business growth, there's been a lot of kind of pivots and shifts. For the first few years of my business, I was known as a social media strategist. Then I moved into marketing strategy. Now what I do is a little bit more diverse than that across business strategy as well. And all of those pivots, all of those shifts have been really, really uncomfortable, because I have had to lead my reputation somewhere that it is not currently. Don't get me wrong, I've never been taking my reputation to a place where I do not actually have expertise. It's not about lying, but I've had to really take control of, no, this is what I want to be known for. This is the kind of opportunities that I want to get. So I need to start putting out content and build my reputation in this different way. I look at some of the amazing things I've got to do over the last 9 years around, writing a book or being featured in Forbes, or even more recently signing with a management company. And all of those things have happened because I reverse engineered, right, what is it that I want to achieve? And therefore, what do I need to be known for in order for that to happen? It's been the same thing around working with certain clients or getting invited to speak at different events. All of those opportunities being kind of offered to me or coming to me, haven't been through chance. It's been through actively creating a reputation that's going to lead to that. I think I worked out fairly early on in my business, actually, what I share is what I grow. Whatever I document, whatever I tell people about, whatever I put out into the world is going to be what grows. It's going to be what I get more of. It's going to be what I become known for. And there has been times in my business where I've not been happy with what I've been known for, and I've had to work quite hard to maybe shift that or pivot it or diversify it. But that's definitely been a lesson that I've seen play out time and time again of being, what you share is where your business grows, and you're in control of those opportunities. It can take quite a lot of time though for, that result to come into place from your action to then the reputation and the subsequent opportunities coming in as well. Moving on then, the third lesson that I've really learned over the last 9 years, and this is definitely a more recent one, which you might have heard a little bit about over the kind of episodes I've done so far this year, which is the idea that when you say yes to something, you also say no to something else. I have really been learning, especially over the last kind of 1 to 2 years in my business, this idea of kind of everything having a trade-off. This idea that, right, everything I say yes to also involves saying no to some other things. I think early on in my business, I was very kind of blinded by the excitement and the shininess and the yeses. And I wasn't always aware of maybe the trade-offs that I was making behind the scenes or the whole picture of that decision that I was really making. Whereas now I feel like I've really learned to understand, okay, I've got to make my decisions through quite an intentional lens of not just do I want that shininess, but also do I want what comes with it? Do I want to launch that new thing if it means I'm not going to be able to focus on those other things? Do I want to say yes to that opportunity if it's going to ask me to trade off those other things that are important to me? The yes and no obviously looks different depending on what's happening, but really to me, it's asking myself the question of like, what's the cost? In my last 9 years of business, I have learned the hard way what the cost can be of doing something or saying yes to something that maybe isn't actually the right fit for me. And it's only really in hindsight that I can look back and see those things. At the time, I just thought I was following the opportunities or saying yes or just going for it. And I don't regret going for it because I learned this lesson that way. But now I really feel like I hold that lesson closely, especially actually right now as I'm trying to kind of be in that less is more mindset with my business model of being really careful about what I'm saying yes to, because every single yes has an equal list of no's. So that is a very present lesson for me that I feel like I'm really holding close. The fourth lesson then I want to share is one that I think came to me probably around like 2019, 2020, which is when I was first really starting to scale my business, i.e. go from just having kind of one-to-one services to courses and programs and working with brands, etc. Which is that when you are hiring people, you want to hire on character, not credentials. What I mean by that is hiring people based on their values, based on their approach, based on their personality, based on their kind of mission and their beliefs, not necessarily so much around, very specific qualifications. Now, I will say there are absolutely times in business where we need to kind of make sure that the credentials obviously line up as well. I'm not going to go hiring a video editor just because they match the character stuff if they don't actually know how to edit videos with the software I like or in a way that really works for me. So I don't quite mean that we go to that extreme, but I've definitely seen this lesson play out a lot of times for me where really what matters is that someone is a good character fit. There have been a number of people in my business that have been really fundamental to my growth over the years in terms of team. I had a team member for quite a few years from back in, I think it was maybe the 2019 for then 3 or 4 years after that, called Emily, who long-term members of my community might remember, who was really fundamental in helping the business to grow. And she was absolutely a fantastic fit in terms of character and did a huge amount within the business because of that. I've also got a longer-term team member now who's actually in the room as I record this, so it's probably a bit embarrassing for both of us, called Em. I promise I don't only hire hired people that are called Emily, but she's been with the team for quite a few years again now. And, obviously has all the credentials fit and can do the job, but more than anything has that character fit where we align on values and approach. And because of that, working together just has so much more ease. I've definitely seen the hard way what happens when we work with people where there's not that character fit. And the biggest thing that I've learned is you can't teach character, right? You can't change fundamentally how someone works or who they are. You can absolutely teach people things and teach people how you want them to do things. So I remember someone telling me this when I first made that hire with Emily years and years and years ago. And that has been a lesson that I come back to every time I look to get help in my business, even if I'm just looking to hire a freelancer for a project, right? I'm still asking that question of, is there a character fit here? Because when the character fit's not there, no amount of right fit credentials for me actually makes that a good solution. And I'd probably kind of add on to that I do just think one of the hardest things about growing a business is team, is people, is, not because people are hard, but just it adds another dynamic. So over the years, there's definitely been a lot of lessons I've learned through that experience. Fifth thing that I feel like I've really learned from the last 9 years of business is that growth is seasonal, and actually we cannot expect ourselves to be always producing the same level all of the time. This is a lesson that I can really track back for me to about 2019, 2020. Obviously, some big things happened in the world in 2020 that we're all familiar with. But really, those were the years when my business really got busy. And I mean busy. I don't often use the word busy because I feel like it has an association that it's out of control and frantic and what. That was it. That was how my business felt at the time. And I remember my life coach at the time said to me this concept of well, what if your growth was seasonal? What if you didn't expect yourself to be having the same output all the time, but you allowed your output to ebb and flow and you mirrored the seasons? And I think about that all of the time in my business. I remember at the time it was a real penny drop moment for me. There's moments where you're oh, that makes so much sense, because they're explaining this idea of, what if you allowed your business to have periods of winter where there's not a lot happening, but you're being patient and you're waiting and you're, watering the ground? And what if there were then seasons of spring and summer where you're reaping the rewards of that? And that not only really helped me at the time to reframe my expectations of myself and my business, but I still to this day kind of plan my business in that way. I don't expect a constant level of growth and revenue generation. I allow my business to feel quite seasonal and for it to ebb and flow and have weeks and months and seasons where it feels more like I'm pushing versus seasons where it feels a bit calmer. So that is a lesson that I think's really helped me to kind of avoid getting too close to burnout and ultimately build a business that feels like it has quite sustainable results within it. So that idea of seasonality within our growth, mirroring nature, and then things becoming better as a result. The sixth lesson I feel like I've learned in the last 9 years, which kind of links to that as well. You can definitely see a theme here. I've had to learn a lot of lessons that are around doing less and not going too crazy with things, which is that you can do anything, but not everything if you want to do it well. I've always understood that idea, right? I'm yeah, I can do anything, but not everything. But I think the big penny drop for me has been over the last couple of years, particularly last year, learning in my business that when I try and do everything, I actually start to sacrifice on quality. And that was a big learning for me, because I've always thought I'm a little bit of a superhuman and I can do a lot and I'm quite high performing and all of that is true. I'm not superhuman, but I can work at quite a high level and my output can be quite high. But there definitely comes a point where if I try and make my output too high, the quality starts to drop and the experience that people are getting from working with me or interacting with my business starts to drop. And that is something that I'm not okay with. That's a real non-negotiable for me, that excellence is always maintained. And so I think I've learned many times in my business, and I can even see this lesson actually right at the start of my business journey. To kind of briefly go back, I spent about a year at the start of my business running very fast, doing a lot, and then I burnt out in a very, very, very dramatic way, 6 months off work in bed level of burnout. And I can even see back then myself starting to learn this lesson of not being able to do everything and having to kind of be more mindful about what I say yes to and what I say no to, and being mindful of my capacity. But I would definitely say this is a lesson that whilst I've known it for a while, has only really started to click into place kind of in recent times. On to then our last three. My seventh lesson of 9 years in business is that you know your business best. This is a lesson that I feel I'm continually relearning, as are many of these lessons the same. But I definitely feel like fairly early on in my business, I learned this the hard way. Quite early on in my business journey, I was starting to show up online, starting to build a network, and I kind of got a bit overwhelmed by seeing everyone else doing things their way. And I started to take on this kind of idea that, okay, I need to do it their way if I'm going to succeed. Down to the level of like, I was starting to make my branding pink, which if you know anything about me and my branding, it's that everything is black and white and I don't have pink anywhere. Nothing against pink, it's just not really for me. I was starting to talk in a way that didn't feel very authentic to me. I was changing my plan all of the time because I thought I needed to do things like all these other people around me. And ultimately what I was doing was not trusting myself. I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't asking, what do I think or what feels right for me? And I learned through that experience, because obviously it didn't work, that strategy. I didn't get results and I was like, well, crap, this isn't working. Maybe I need to try it my way. Tried it my way and things work. And I learned from that, okay, I have to trust that I know my business best. Absolutely. There are experts out there that can give me guidance and insight, but I can't outsource the knowledge of my business to someone else. I can't hire someone else thinking that they're going to make decisions for me. Ultimately, every decision has to go through my filter of what do I think. And if what I think is wrong, that's okay. I've got to learn that lesson the hard way. But I've definitely learned that very early on and really held that close to myself. And it's something I say a lot actually to my community and to my clients, is that idea of, you know your business best. Trust yourself. Don't look to someone else to have the answers for you. Other people can give input, absolutely. Other people might know a topic better than you, but you run your business for a reason. You know it best. And the more you trust that, the more that you're going to see the growth as well. My penultimate learning, one of my favorites, one that I say a lot within my program on it, is this idea of bounce back rate being more important than consistency. I think this has been one that's been in the last kind of couple of years for me, again, where I think for a long time I always said to myself, no, I am trying to be consistent all the time. You know, I'm trying to be always on, constant output, always doing, always kind of delivering. And I always had a sense that that wasn't actually realistic. I wasn't actually always delivering, and it wasn't actually perfect consistency. And it was only really in the last few years that I started to think like, maybe there's something else that I need to measure my success on here. And I can't quite remember the exact kind of, penny drop moment, but I just started to use this language with myself of, Alice, it's not about consistency, it's about bounce back rate. And what I mean by that is the goal is not to not fall off the bandwagon. The goal is to get back on as soon as I'm ready to. And that is a mindset and a lesson for me that's been transformative, because it's helped me to be so much kinder to myself and so much more aware of just my general human nature, which is to lose consistency, sometimes for the right reasons. Sometimes it's accidental and I probably shouldn't have, but sometimes it just happens. And that lesson for me of valuing my bounce back rate over my consistency, I think, has been really key. So that's my 8th lesson. And then my 9th and very final lesson in business, which is one that I learned so incredibly early on. I have a tattoo on my arm that says 4-1, as in FOR, new word, ONE. And it's a lesson that I learned very early on in business that I continue to remind myself of, which is that everything I do in business is worth it if it helps one person. This lesson originated because back in the early days of my business, I hosted an online workshop. One person turned up. I was so disheartened. I felt like I'd failed. And I remember I told my parents and they said to me, but did you show up for that one person? Did you impact that one person? Did you bring your best for that one person? And I remember that so often because it's easy in business to get overwhelmed by the numbers and to get sucked into thinking that bigger is always better. And if it's not big numbers, it's not worth it. And that's just not the case. Like, yes, numbers are important for my business to be scaling and working and profitable, but ultimately it's all about people. The last 9 years of business growth, the one thing that underpins it all is people. My community, my clients, my students, my team, my network, the people that have supported me. People is what has allowed my business to grow and what allows my business to exist. That lesson is one that I'm so, so glad my parents taught me early on. And I credit a lot of my mindset and growth to my parents because they are really level-headed, kind, value-driven, very hardworking people. And that is one I'm glad I learned early on because it's held with me the whole of the business journey, is that idea of 4-1, everything's worth it if it's for one person. So in summary, those are my 9 lessons from 9 years in business. I could share, honestly, hundreds more lessons to add to that list, but I hope that maybe just gives you a bit of an insight into some of the things and some of the particular kind of learnings that the last 9 years have held, and really what the things are that I'm holding close to myself as I continue to grow my business. I wholeheartedly wholeheartedly believe in business that every piece of action that we take sets us up to move forwards even more intentionally, even more confidently. And I, whilst at the time sometimes resented how I had to learn these lessons because they might have been quite difficult or challenging experiences, I'm very grateful for them because I credit a lot of them to getting me to where I am now. And I hope a lot of them stay with me and help me to grow as I continue. I would love to hear if any of these lessons resonate in particular. You're welcome to come over to watch this on YouTube and come and comment there. I'd love to hear. Or if you want to add one of your lessons to this list, maybe give me a list for however many years that you've been in business. Although I found it actually quite difficult to start thinking. And then once I started thinking, I was like, I've got a million lessons to share. How do I choose only 9? So thank you for listening into this. Thank you for being a part of this business. Because like I said, wouldn't happen if it wasn't for you that listens and connects and is a part of this community. Please remember that as a thank you, I have got the 27% off sale happening across On Paper, my stationery shop, and also the strategy shop. So if you head to those links in the show notes or the description, wherever you're listening to this, you can go and get yourself a discount on a tool that's going to help your business to grow. Consider it a little thank you from me to you for being a part of this business for a whole nother year. And like I said, there will not be a discount like that happening for another year's time till my 28th birthday. So go and check that out if that's relevant for you. And thank you so much for listening.